Dr. Phil joins us here in studio tonight. Dr. Phil, you just wrapped up an exclusive interview with Tom Homan. What did he have to say?
Well, Tom had a lot to say. He is, has been in the headlines a lot lately in his job, and he is very passionate and committed about carrying out that job. And he began this job with a commitment to do the worst first, and that is to get the violent criminals off the street and deport them, get them out of the United States. And he is doing that. And he is not deterred by any of the politics, any of the activists that are crying about what he's doing. And he is more committed to it now than he was when he started. And he says he feels like they're succeeding, and he's going to continue doing what he's doing.
We have a clip now we want to show our viewers about the deportation flights and the legal challenges that the Trump administration is facing over those. Listen to this.
How many people have been shipped off that are considered to be TDA?
This latest flight, it was a total of 263 people. The vast majority were TDAs. There was about 21 MS-13 members that were included in that group. So you can subtract them. So we removed 21 members of MS-13. And these are people El Salvador wanted. This is where MS-13 is born and raised in El Salvador. It's originated there. So the president wanted them back as quickly as possible. So we put that 21 on the plane along with 240 TDAs that were sent this past weekend.
A judge tried to stop that. In fact, he said, if these planes haven't taken off, if they've taken off, they need to turn around. If they haven't taken off, they need to stop. You didn't, this was Judge Boasberg. You didn't take kindly to him trying to stop you doing your job.
No, because the TDA they've been designated as terrorist organizations. Look, in the past year, how many TDA members have raped and murdered young women in this country? They're flooding our communities with fentanyl. That's killed over 250,000 Americans. We see them taking over apartment buildings. We see them attacking U.S. citizens in our major cities across the country. We truly believe TDA, based on a lot of investigations, a lot of work done by experts, that they are an arm of the Maduro regime. And called an incursion in the United States, called an invasion. They come to the United States to unsettle this country by killing Americans with fentanyl, attacking U.S. citizens in our cities. They are an enemy of the United States. By pure definition, TDA is an enemy of the United States. They didn't come here for the right reasons. They came here to do horrendous acts. So the president took his authority, along with the Secretary of State and the Secretary of DHS, to designate them terrorist organizations. What we did this weekend is removed 240 terrorists. The terrorists were on that plane, so we don't think any district judge has a right to say, okay, turn that plane around, even though you're in international waters, or maybe refuel the plane over international waters and bring terrorists back to the United States. No, we removed these public safety threats and terrorists from the United States. That's exactly what we did. The president has a right to invoke the Alien Enemies Act, and that's what he did. And it's a belief of many in this administration, including DOJ, because Pam Bondi's pushed back against this judge, that he doesn't have the authority to overrule the president when he executes the Alien Enemies Act. I'm not an attorney. I'll let them fight that out in court. But as a cop, a career cop, the ones focused on public safety, we did exactly the right thing. And I can't believe there's any media outlet or any judge that wants to push back on remove it. Terrorists, public safety threats that committed heinous act in this country, I just don't understand why anybody want to bring him back into the United States when we already had him removed.
This is a terrorist group. And when we talk about these pro-Hamas people on campus, it seems to me the same way. They are here openly supporting a group that has killed Americans, that has American hostages. They clearly are aligned with enemies of the United States of America. Now, if we interviewed those people when they were asking for a visa or a green card, and they said, by the way, I support the enemies of the United States, those that have killed Americans and are holding hostages, American hostages, would they be granted admission to the United States of America? Would I say, sure, come on in?
Absolutely not. They would never got a visa to begin with. But remember, many of these TDA members were released into the United States by the Biden administration. They came across the border and they're released into the United States. Some were parole, some were just released under OR. So, and I'll say it again, we spent a lot of investigative manpower. And the reason we use the Alien Enemies Act, because we can show that TDA is infiltrated and a part of the Maduro regime through their military and their law enforcement. There's no question about that. We can fact check that all day. The Maduro regime sent them here to unsettle this country. And President Trump's been clear about that even before he's president, that this was what was occurring. As soon as he got in office, we started taking steps to hold these people accountable, hold these countries accountable, and that's what we're doing. Again, President Trump promised American people the mandate he got from the American people. Number one issue is immigration enforcement and border security. He made a promise to American people, we're going to decrease illegal alien crime, we're going to secure the border, we're going to make our community safer, and that's what we're doing. Every criminal safety threat, every TDA member, every national security threat that we arrest and remove from this country makes this country more safe. No one can disagree with that. That's just a stone cold common sense fact. But now we get back to politics. We got the left pushing back on everything President Trump is doing. And what I find shocking is last week I had a camera put in my face pushing back on the fact that we removed over 200 terrorists, gang members, public safety threats from this country within the framework of the law. The president doing everything he can to keep his promise to American people, and no one should argue. It shouldn't be a partisan issue that we're removing public safety threats and national security threats from this country. TDA are terrorists. They're a public safety threat. It's a gang who's killed thousands of Americans. So it's time we hold them accountable. President Trump's doing that. And we're not going to apologize for doing that. We're not going to change what we're doing.
So you're not going to back off of doing this. You're not going to back off of sending people off on these flights to El Salvador or wherever the arrangements are made. You intend to continue to do what you're doing.
Flights are going to leave this country every day. We're going to remove. And as I said, you and I have talked about this many times, Dr. Phil. The president has said we're going to prioritize public safety threats and national security threats. That's exactly what we're going to do, and we're going to continue to do it. We're doing it today. We're going to do it tomorrow. We're going to do it every day. And I won't rest safe, and neither will the president rest until every criminal alien public safety threat, every criminal alien national security threat is eradicated from that country. That's when I'll sleep well at night. Until then, we're going to do this 24/7 and make this country safe again.
The legal challenges really seems to be what a lot of people are talking about right now. In fact, during today's White House press briefing, it consumed most of it. The legal challenges that multiple judges are stepping in over different reasons, but specifically this one. Well, what do you think of what we're seeing?
Well, look, I'm not a lawyer. Tom's not a lawyer, and we'll leave that to the Department of Justice and President Trump's people. What his position is he has been instructed to do this. He's being instructed that these judges don't have jurisdiction over this, that this act that the president is relying on gives him additional powers when we're under invasion. And they clearly look at this as an invasion. I mean, he says he believes this this gang, Tren de Agua, TDA gang, is an arm of Maduro, and they're coming here with fentanyl and violence and others to kill Americans, and that to him that's an invasion.
Yeah.
And as a result, they're using those additional powers to eliminate these people. And I asked him straight up, if these people, when you find them, if they were Americans, and they were doing the things they're doing, would they be arrested? And he says, of course they would.
Right.
It doesn't make any difference what immigration status is. The fact that they're immigrants means they are removed from the country, but you can't do these things if you're an American citizen. It's not a matter of just being immigrants. You can't come in and sell these drugs. And these deaths that we're having from fentanyl are not overdoses. This is poisoning. This is a deadly drug that is poisoning Americans. And this gang, these Venezuelans that are coming in, they are intimidating people. They're doing sex trafficking, drug trafficking, and they're resulting in the death of Americans. Yeah. You don't want those people in this country, and they're taking them out. And the president is operating under this act, which they say, well, that's 200 years old. Mm-hmm. His comment was, well, the Constitution's older than that, and we rely on it.
Right. You know, one of the things that I really respect, and I think our viewers appreciate, is several months ago, you stood up and you said, look, if Kamala Harris is elected president, she'll be my president.
Yes.
And you said, if Donald Trump is elected president, he'll be my president.
Yes.
You know, when we have the White House telling us that 60% of all injunctions levied against the government have been under Trump's leadership, there's a disconnect there, right? Or am I wrong?
Well, I think that there is a disconnect, and I think the reason that you're seeing it is because he is a disruptor. There is a pattern to this government, and when you do things long enough, they get normalized. It's like, you know, there's always this crash to get the budget done. Mm-hmm. You know, come on. The budget comes around every year.
We know it's coming.
When it's coming, and you're going to have it every time. And there's always this fire drill at the end. Are we going to shut down the government? Are we going to make the deadline? We got to have an extension. And that's become so normal that everybody just says, well, that's just the way we do it. No, that's not the way we do it. That's just the way we have learned to accept to do it. These people are elected to get down there and run this government. If you did that in a business, you'd be out of business. Mm-hmm. And we've just normalized a lot of this stuff. Well, here he comes as a disruptor and says, no, we don't have to continue to do this. We can do this in a more business-like fashion. We've got people in this country that have been let in by the millions that shouldn't be here. We don't have to maintain the status quo just because that's the way it's been done. Mm-hmm. They have gotten more people in custody and out of this country in the first couple of months of his presidency than in the entire Biden administration. Yeah. And so that makes people say, well, wait a minute, whoa, hold on, what's happening here? We got to start filing a bunch of injunctions, and the ACLU steps up, and people here and people there. Well, you know, somebody's coming in and making things happen. Is it all going to be perfect and error-free? Is DOJ going to be perfect and error-free? No. And when they make a mistake, they need to acknowledge that and fix it right now.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you sit on the sidelines and do nothing. They're doing something, and it won't be perfect. They need to admit it when they make a mistake and fix it immediately.
They're doing a lot, especially when it comes to deportations and illegal immigrants. In fact, there's reaction that Tom Homan is getting when he's seeing people out on the streets. Listen to this part of the conversation that Dr. Phil had.
Well, you and I have been together in different cities in different states across this country, and I've seen street cops, sheriffs, they come rushing up to you like Elvis is in the building. They all want to work with you. They all appreciate you bringing your resources, your leadership and your resources to their community. Every one of them, everywhere we go, the street cops all come up and thank you for what you're doing, whether they're politicians supported or not. They all privately come up to you, shake your hand and say, thank you for what you're doing.
They took an oath. They put that badge on their chest, and they strap up every day with a gun to protect their communities. They put the community safety first. So, you know, and I say all the time, it's cops working with the cops. They want to work with law enforcement officers at ICE to make their community safer. That's the number one goal. Every one of these men and women who take that oath, they're not making a lot of money, none of them, but they're doing it for the right reasons, to serve their communities and make their communities safer. And the number one goal is remove public safety threats from those communities. The street cops also know if we have access to the bad guy in the jail, It's always safer for the community because when you release that person without knowing fine ice, they're going to be free to recommit. I just got one example from Massachusetts where there was a child rapist. An illegal alien raped a child. They released him, didn't under detain her. It took us 2 years to find that person. So how many young children did this illegal alien rape in the 2 years it took us to find them? Police officers get it. Politicians get it. But they're putting politics over public safety as obvious, and it's disgusting.
This idea of politics over safety is really scary for a lot of people.
Well, it is. And, you know, it's one of those things where you can't listen to the loudest voice. We've got some activists that are making a lot of noise about this. But I've been in multiple states, multiple cities, in multiple locations with Tom Homan and talked to the American people, and particularly American law enforcement, border guards, sheriffs, street cops, and I can tell you across the board, the vast majority of those people come up to Tom Homan and say, thank you. Thank you for enforcing the law. Thank you for having our back. Thank you for getting the dangerous criminals off the street. The fact that we've got a few people that are loud and are getting on legacy media and making noise are not representative of the attitude of the American people, and certainly not representative of the law enforcement community in America. They support Tom Homan. They support the common sense idea of arresting the worst first, of getting the dangerous criminals off the street. They've arrested serial child rapists that have been arrested and turned loose, and it took 2 years to find them again and get them off the street and out of this country. Now tell me what sense it makes to let a serial child rapist out of jail on bail or probation or whatever. Psychological science will tell you that these are repeat offenders, that they're likely to reoffend, and we turn them loose in our communities. And so they find them. I mean, what do these people, would they like us to find them, give them a citation and turn them back loose in the community, or do we want them out of our community? Safety is the number one concern. And this isn't about politics. To me, this isn't Republican or Democrat. This is about America. And are you making America safer, or are you making it less safe? And I say when these people are arrested and taken out of America and sent back where they came from, that we are safer than having them on the street. To me, that's not even a close call.
Yeah, you also talked to Tom Homan about the case of Mahmoud Khalil. It's a case that we followed closely here on the news on Merit TV, specifically when it comes to his green card. Listen to this part of the conversation.
The executive order, look at the fact sheet. The president said immediate action will be taken by the Department of Justice to protect law and order, quell pro-Hamas vandalism and intimidation, and investigate and punish anti-Jewish racism in leftist, anti-American violation of our laws. Deport Hamas sympathizers and revoke student visas. And he said, and I quote, to all the resident aliens who joined in the pro-jihadist protest, we put you on notice come 2025. We will find you and we will deport you. I will also quickly cancel student visas of all Hamas sympathizers on college campuses. These people were on notice. They were told, you do this, you're gone. And they continue to do it blatantly, publicly, in front of cameras, loving the attention. What do they expect to happen?
The president has been clear on this from day one. You know, getting a visa to come to this country or getting your green card, that is a privilege.
We don't have that right.
Exactly. In some aspects they do, but in this aspect they don't. There are certain rules and regulations they must follow. When we give someone a student visa, there are conditions of that visa, conditions of release, that you got to follow certain rules. If you don't follow those rules, then the great benefit you got from us is going to be taken back. That's called consequences. We got to have a consequence that people come to this country under false pretenses, claim they're going to come here to study, but rather they come here and want to support Hamas and take over college campuses and threaten the lives of other students. That's not going to be tolerated. They might have got away with that under President Biden, but they will not get away with that under President Trump. We will hold them accountable.
He says that having a green card is a privilege, not a right.
Well, it is a privilege, and it's a privilege that the president was very clear about this. He did an executive order. He says immediate action will be taken by the Department of Justice to protect law and order, quell pro-Hamas vandalism and intimidation, and investigate and punish anti-Jewish racism and leftist, anti-American violation of our laws. Deport Hamas sympathizers and revoke student visas. And then he said, quote, to all the resident aliens who joined in the pro-jihadist protest, we put you on notice. Come 2025, we will find you and we will deport you. I will also quickly cancel the student visas of all Hamas sympathizers on college campuses, which have been infested with radicalism like never before. He warned them, if you're going to do this, if you are going to come in and politic for known terrorist groups that are anti-American, terrorist groups that have killed Americans and held American hostages and are believed to be holding American hostages as we sit here right now and talk, then you don't get the privilege of a green card. And to me, you ask yourself this question. If, when they applied for that green card, they said, by the way, we are going to come in and demonstrate for enemies of America, enemies that are killing Americans, may we have a green card? The answer would have been absolutely not, no.
Yeah.
So why would they be allowed to keep one once they do it? It just makes no sense to me. And so they've pulling the green card and sending them home.
Of everyone's reporting that I've seen, you've been on the front lines, right? You've been to Israel. You've been inside the kibbutz where the Hamas folks terrorized families, killed babies, took people, set fires. You've been all over that story. You've been on university campuses and you've seen it firsthand, the pro-Hamas propaganda that's happening in different universities. You see it, you get it. Why are there people then who are sympathizing with someone over a green card? Again, you've seen it all. But there are people who say, well, he's married to an American woman. She's 9 months pregnant with their first child.
Well, to me, this isn't a close call. When I have been there, I have seen it. And people who characterize what happened on October 7th as resistance, to me is nonsense. Now, look, I'm not a political expert. I'm certainly not an expert in geopolitics.
Right.
But what happened on October 7th and what has happened since then and before then, there is not a moral equivalent to what happened on October 7th. These were assassins that came across and through that fence and murdered women and children, infants, in their cribs, and did so in a heinous, inhuman way.
Yeah.
And people say, well, there have been children killed in Palestine. That's true. And I absolutely hate that. I absolutely hate that. And I ask those people, what did you expect? What is Israel expected to do when you come across and murder 1,000 people? They say, well, but they've killed more people. Well, they didn't start this, and when Hamas goes back and hides among civilians in Gaza, you can't say, oh, well, you're hiding among civilians. Shrapnel from a bomb is an act of war. Coming across and killing infants in their cribs is a war crime. And those are two very different things. And I think you're beginning to see that Palestinians in the Gaza Strip are starting to really stand up against Hamas themselves and say, enough's enough and too much is too much. And this is too much. And I think we're going to start to see some changes across there. Do I hate that there have been deaths in Palestine? Of course.
Yeah.
I hate to see Palestinians killed ever. You don't want to see anyone die, certainly children in Palestine. And I say Israel didn't start this. And they say, oh, yes, they did, back in this time and that time and this time. They didn't come across the fence and assassinate Palestinians. They say Israel's an apartheid state. That's just absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
Absolute nonsense.
Well, we look forward to the big Tom Homan interview that will air. It'll be a brand new Dr. Phil Primetime right here on your network. We look forward to that.